Okay, class, so we're going to just take a quick look here at how we can write an equation in slope-intercept form if we're given 2 points on a line. So these are our 2 points. We've got the point, we'll call it P1, which is 3, -2. We've got the point we'll call P2, which is 2, 2. And we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b form from those 2 points. Well, in order to write an equation in slope-intercept form, the first thing we need to do is we need to find the slope. After we know the slope, we'll be able to go ahead and calculate the y-intercept as well. So we're going to start with our slope formula. We know that slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Well, if we go back up here and we look at our points, we've got our y2 and our y1, and we've got our x2 and our x1. It doesn't actually matter which one's which as far as your y2 and your y1. I could make my -2 be my y2 and my 2 be my y1. But to keep things simple and positive, I'm going to go ahead and subtract in this order. I'm going to do 2 minus -2. So I let my P2 be my second, my y2 minus my P1, which is my y1. Now, because I went in that order with my y's, I need to go in the same order with my x's. So for the x's, I'm going to do 2 minus 3. So again, I did my y2 minus my y1 and my x2 minus my x1, finding the slope. And I've got a slope of 4 over -1, which is -4. So at this point, here's what we know. We know that the slope of our line is -4. So I can write my equation just like that. Y equals mx plus b, where m is -4. Next thing we need to do is we need to find our y-intercept. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to pick one of our 2 points. It doesn't matter which point we choose. We can pick either P1 or P2. And we're going to actually substitute those values into our equation for y and x. So for example, I could, let's just suppose I choose P1, even though probably P2 is the easier point to use. But I'm going to use P1 just so that we don't get confused by the 2's being the same. I'm going to take my 3 and I'm going to put it in for x. I'm going to take my 2, -2, and put it in for, substitute it in for y. And you'll notice that after we make that substitution, -2 is equal to -4 times my x-coordinate, which is 3, plus b. You'll notice that after we make that substitution, the only variable that we have in our equation is b. Now we can go ahead and use this new equation to solve for our y-intercept. So if I go ahead and solve, I've got -2 is equal to -12 plus b. Adding 12 to both sides of my equation to isolate the b, I have 10 is equal to b. So now I've got my y-intercept. I already know my slope. If we come right back up here to this equation, I'm going to just highlight in green. If we come back up here to this equation, all I need to do is substitute my y-intercept back in there for b. So my equation in slope-intercept form is going to look like this. Y is equal to -4, sorry, that was supposed to be a negative sign, -4x plus 10. Now, in case you don't believe me, let's quickly jump to the next slide, and we're going to look to see. I'm going to go ahead and graph this. I'm going to graph this equation on a coordinate plane. I'm going to look to see, does it go through these 2 points? So let's take a quick look. So my equation, once again, was y is equal to -4x plus 10. And if you recall, my 2 points were -3, 2, and 2, 2. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and graph the line and see if it actually hits those 2 points. So to graph the line, the first thing I'm going to do is go up to 10 on the y-axis. That's way up here. And I'm going to rise -4 and run 1. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1. There's rise -4, run 1. I'm going to do it again. Rise -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, run 1. If I want to, I could do this one more time and get a nice look at my line. 1, 2, 3, 4, down 4, over 1. And now I'm going to try and draw a nice straight line through those points, and we'll see how well I can do that. Well, not very well. Let's undo that. That was better. Now let's see how we did. Does this new point, or this new line, actually go through these 2 points? Let's see if it goes through this point. -3, +2. Well, no, it doesn't, because as we look back at the previous slide, it wasn't a -3, +2. It was a 3, -2. Sorry, I wrote the wrong point down. Got a little confused there. I looked at my graph and thought, well, no, it doesn't go through that point. So the point 3, -2. If we go to the point 3, -2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, there it is. We can see that our line does in fact go through 3, -2. Now let's see if it goes through this point as well. 2, 2 is actually right here. We can see that it goes through both those points. So we have found the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that contains the 2 points that we were looking for. Now before we quit, let's just jump back here for one quick second. Let's suppose, if you remember, let's go through the process one more time. The first thing we did was we found our slope. Our slope ended up being -4. We plugged our slope into our equation for m. We plugged in a point into our equation for y and x, and we solved for b. We happen to use the 3, -2 point. Let's just suppose for one moment we would have used instead, let's suppose we would have used point 2, which was 2, 2. Let's see what would happen in that case. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to back up a little bit. Here's where we were. We had our slope. The slope doesn't change no matter what. -4x plus b. We calculated the slope. That can't be any different. Now let's suppose we just put a 2, 2 in here for y and x instead of a 3, -2. Watch what happens. 2 is equal to -4 times 2 plus b. 2 is equal to -8 plus b. Adding 8 to both sides to solve my equation, I end up with 10 is equal to b. And guess what? Is that any different than the y-intercept that we got when we chose the other point? And the answer, of course, is no. So no matter how you look at this, whether you use the first point to substitute in for your x and y, or use the second point, we end up with the exact same line in slope-intercept form. So keep in mind, after you find the slope and you go substitute a point into the equation to solve for the y-intercept, you can pick either point. It's up to you. Whichever one looks easier to work with, that's the one you want to use. Okay, so good luck practicing writing equations in slope-intercept form using 2 points.